Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lifestyle with Dr. Moby. I'm Dr. Moby, and today we have great guest all the way from New Jersey. Let's welcome Mr. Richard Kaufman.
Hey, Doc. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. Thank you for joining our show. So tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
Well, I'm a veteran of the United States military. Served for over 23 years. I'm a recovering drug addict. I just celebrated 33 years sober on New Year's Eve. Recovering alcoholic. I've been homeless. Struggled with PTSD from a training accident. Came back from blindness. I was 80% blind last January. Now we're finally starting to come back. Number one Amazon selling author. Top podcaster. Our podcast is in the top 1% in the United States. Coffee company owner. And now I just try to talk to people and let people know that you do not have to be the same person when you go to bed tonight as the same person that woke up that morning. You can always change. And that's why my campaign is called Today I Decide, which means you don't have to be. You can be anything you want to be. All you have to do is make that decision to change.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. And it's been, pleasure meeting you. A lot of things I think you mentioned, and one by one, first of all, thank you for years of your service. That means a lot. Then the other thing is, then you have mentioned like a lot other veterans go through PTSD, and that is the awareness we want to talk about in this session. Mental health, very important. And another problem, of course, is about drug addiction, which is also very prevalent. And then I think one other topic, how you came out, that is really story by itself. And then also your success as out of being homeless, and then now being very successful, not only author, podcaster, but also business venture, which I love, your coffee. We'll talk a little bit one by one. So I think let's first start with your years in service. So tell me, you said when you were there, did you have then diagnosis of PTSD then or afterward?
It was afterwards. I joined in 1986. I stayed in for 2.5 years. They threw me out for being a drug addict and alcoholic. And then a couple years later, I got back in and was going to be thrown out for a second time at the end of September of 2001. But because of what happened on the morning of 9/11, it totally changed my whole life and my everything. It changed that morning. And I got back in the military, became Soldier of the Year, became an officer, non-commissioned officer. And then I got hurt on duty and I lost my vision. So, being in the military, if you can't see, you can't shoot, then they don't need you. So they medically discharged me. And that's when the PTSD really stuck, because, once I got back in the military and gave it my all, I did everything I could to be the ultimate soldier. And then when they told me I was no longer Sergeant Kaufman, I didn't know who Richard was. So I was scared, and I didn't know. I had to reinvent myself and reimagine myself. And it was really scary not having your vision, and then, trying to figure out, now what do? I don't have a career anymore.
Mm.
So that's what a lot of it. That's where a lot of the PTS came from.
Wow. So that was basically from the trauma of losing vision.
Yeah, from and I think it was more mental because I think no matter what profession we have, like if you're a doctor, you become known as Doctor So and So, and what happens if one day you wake up and you're no longer a doctor? Who
Hmm.
are you?
Yeah,
You know,
that's.
and then you have to reinvent yourself,
Mhm.
and it's scary when reinventing yourself at the age of 40 than at the age of 18 or 20. So it was kind of scary to try to figure out a new way of life.
Mm. And that is true. And we are seeing, I can tell you because I have few of fellow doctors too, and also a few other people, because of let's say, for example, nowadays we are seeing a lot more COVID, right? And so they had to reinvent and relearn things. Or let's say if somebody all their life they did as a with their right hand, and god forbid they have a stroke, and then they cannot use their right side, and then they just have to relearn everything from the left side. And I had another guest actually, she had to relearn the whole language because she lost the power even to speak.
Yeah, and you kind of have to learn the new normal.
Yeah,
It's become, it becomes your new normal, and
that,
and you have to eventually you have to learn to accept it.
mhm,
And then like for me, once I lost my vision,
mhm.
my hearing got better.
Oh, wow.
So when I started podcasting, it actually helped me because now when I interview somebody or I'm being interviewed, I can really hone in on what that person's saying
Mhm.
and listen to the words that they're saying. Because there's a difference between hearing and active listening. And I
That
think
is
that thing that one helped me was I actually became a better listener.
wow, wow. It's just always there's something I always learn from my guests. Like you said, there's if one thing was gone, then you got better at the other, and you not only did you achieve far more you ever thought you would ever do in life, right?
Yeah.
That is fascinating, very fascinating. Also, tell me a little bit about some of the, I'm sure you have seen other veterans, and so about PTSD, because I also worked with the VA, as I've worked in the past with VA and with Department of Defense. So, a lot of active duty, and those, there is still a lot of about PTSD awareness as well as. So, why is that we are still, you know, still far out from that?
Well, I mean, I think things are starting to get better, but you know, PTSD is not a disorder. It
Mhm.
is something that happened to us or something that we seen. Because if you're a police officer, if you're a firefighter, if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, you see things that the average person should never see.
Mm.
And so it's a lot of it comes down to how do we process things. There's like for veterans, a lot of it is, you know, some of us, not all of us, I mean, may have had to take a life
Well,
and
yeah,
you can't really process it at that time, but years later it might, bother you. Either that or sometimes you might lose a brother, you might lose a friend over there, and
mhm.
you made it. So you have a lot of survivor's guilt.
That's true. That's
So
true.
so a lot of there's a lot of different things that can go into PTS. I call it PTSG, which is post traumatic growth, because you can either choose to be a victim
Mhm,
or you can be a victor.
mhm.
You know,
So, okay. So that, yeah, that is true. There could be different scenarios, and then you have to understand everybody's, kind of different. So what you're saying is everybody's processing is different. So, and then that could be, and so our treatment or everything should be based on that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, everybody may have the same car, but when it goes to the mechanic, everybody has a different problem.
That's true. That's true.
So, you just have to figure, and a lot of times guys and girls in the military or the police department, they don't feel comfortable opening up to somebody that's never been there.
Hmm.
So I think of the VA hired more people that have actually worn a uniform, I think we'd get much better results.
And that is true. But also, I think I've seen that also they tend to. There are other folks there, which because I've been in both departments and I've seen they are kind of sometimes they have to go out to outside providers
Yeah. Yep.
because they get a better care.
Yep.
Okay, because the system unfortunately is tend to sometimes kind of ignore things. So
Well, and the thing about the VA, I love the VA in New Jersey. They treat me great. I have no complaints. But when you have 9 million, there's 9 million people in New Jersey, and 2% of them are veterans. So you figure that 2% or 3% are in the hospitals every month. That's a lot of people.
yeah, yeah,
And and a lot of people, they just don't realize the pressure that the staff is under. And then the VA, a lot of doctors, or they'll do their residency there, and then they're gone. So you don't really get to see the same doctor for a period of time. It's just I may see you 1 month and then you're off the next month. So
mm,
it's a little bit of they have a hard time with consistency.
mm, that's true. Like I said, I've been with the VA too for many years, and one thing was there that they had the sickest patient. Okay, so they had people had everything wrong, so which was sad, very sad, because and then made me think that is it because they were not taken care while they were in service, post service, or they like they had real things wrong. It's not that they were making anything up. It's just very sad that they need the most care out of everybody. Even if you look at any any of the medication list of veterans versus non-veterans, they're on 25 medication. Okay, and this is very sad. This I cannot explain why is that. Is it because the years in their service or active duty they're not taking care of versus what?
Well, and I think a lot of it is like we're still learning. I'm very big on learning about traumatic brain injuries, concussions, CTE, and it's a lot of this we're just learning.
Yeah,
We don't know a lot about the brain and what because hardly ever hear about them talk about CTE in the military, but it's very prevalent in sports. So a lot of veterans have traumatic brain injuries, and then they might commit suicide down the road, and it might be CTE, but we don't have the bandwidth to be able to actually test for it. So I think we're still learning. We're still in a learning phase.
that's true. But important thing is not to ignore. So
Yeah.
what I really want, everybody to kind of don't ignore the symptoms. And if like you said, if your mood disorders and all those are not better, maybe look at the damage to the brain, because I'm sure you probably are given analogy like NFL. There were players committed suicide. Okay, but then problem was they had actually TBI, and then so those were now NFL acknowledged so many years later, right?
Well, it is, but I think players like the NFL is getting smarter. Is that they're taking baseline testing before they start their career. So then if something is off, you can see, all right, this was the baseline. This is where they're at now. There's a problem. And
Yeah,
I think maybe the military might do something like that down the road.
yeah, and they should be. And then I think they should be granting either, waivers or something at the beginning. So then, if later on, if they have those disabilities or problems, then the other thing is, which I really want and I'm passionate, is about, rewarding soldiers who maintain very healthy lifestyle or health. I don't know, but the system is geared more towards other way around. That, if you're more sickest, you get the most reward, which is, I understand. Then you need a care, but also they get lot of benefits. So then that kind of defeats the purpose, in my opinion, of keeping. But about people who want to maintain healthy lifestyle and they want to be healthy, then they will have there's no reward for that.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I'm a business person, and we all know that um, a lot of, not saying all of them, but a lot of doctors, you become a customer.
Yeah.
And my cousin is a doctor. She works for the Center of Disease Control, and we talk about this all the time. That a lot of they're creating customers. So if everybody gets healthy, we no longer need doctors. All of a sudden, the healthcare community crashes down. So it's kind of like it's a slippery slope. It's kind of like they're trying to get you healthy, but not too healthy.
Yeah, yeah, and this is where I have usually, problem with, because I realize that exactly what you're saying. The system is the whole system: pharmaceutical industry, food industry, every industry is relying on for their benefit, but not about, so food industry, for example, they're totally unregulated in terms of health. I don't know. So they want, and if people don't buy those sandwiches and all that, and then there won't be, those Big Macs and all those, not to kind of highlight certain companies, but big sizes. And then I guess they won't be selling much. And then it's like, but problem is, then you get sick and you will be my customer, doctor's customer, for rest of life. And then but in the end, who is the loser? I think patients are, because you have a shorter life,
Yeah.
so not a longer life. So it's a lot of disease we see are actually created by food industry. So, and then this is very, very sad, because um I I think there has to be some kind of better way than this.
Well, it's kind of like also, now we're getting back to the addiction. The opioid crisis.
Hmm.
It's insane. How doctors are, a lot of doctors, not a lot, all, because there's some that are very good, which I have some very great doctors, so at the VA, so I can't complain. But a lot of the first thing they'll do is say, "Oh, you got a shoulder pain? Well, why don't you take some oxy?" And you're like, "No, I don't need. Give me some physical therapy, maybe. Make the worst, you give me some anti-inflammatories, but I
Mm.
don't need oxy." Because
Mm.
once you get, once you start getting hooked on that stuff, and then they're like, "Well, we're going to take you off." Well, but you just created an addict.
Yeah. Also, tell me a little bit, since you were in that phase and you said you successfully got out of that. So, why don't you share what helped you to get out?
Well, what happened was, I was, it was New Year's Eve 2000, no, 1989. I got a job bartending for a friend of mine. He was a police officer,
Hmm.
and somehow I got really, really drunk, and I actually robbed the bar that I was working at. And he came to arrest me the next morning. I had like 5,000 cash on me, and I gave away like $2,000 worth of free drinks. But he said, I'm going to give you a break. I want you to get my money back, which I did. I had to beg, borrow. Parents helped me out. Aunt and uncle helped me out. But he said, I also want you to go to 90 meetings in AA in 90 days. And I think I hit like 300 meetings in a row. And that January 2nd of 1989, January 1st of 1989 was the last time I had a drink or a drug. So I
Wow.
actually quit at the age of 20 before most people even started, because I started at 12. So I had
Wow.
8 years of heavy alcohol and drug use, and then I quit at the age of 20. So that's when I actually stopped taking any kind of. I won't take anything more than an aspirin. I can't use regular mouthwash. I can't eat, eat regular vanilla cookies because of the vanilla extract in it. So I got to be really careful about what I take in my body, because you never know. You go to a birthday party, they have cakes and cookies out there. You don't know if they're amaretto. You don't know if they have, different alcohols in them. So I have to be very careful. Even 33 years later, I got to be careful of whatever I put in my mouth or whatever I put in my body. I got to be very cognizant of it.
Mm, mm. No, this is very, very unique, and that you got out of that. Not only that, and you're successful all these years now.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, and for me, like a lot of people ask me, well, how did you do it, or how do you stay, without it? And I'm like, listen, if I drink, I die. That's it. End of story. If I have one drink, I'm not coming back. I'm not going to make it. So I have that mindset, that once I have that drink, I'm a dead man. And if you have that, and if a person has that fear in their, it's a good fear. But if they have that in their mind that, one drink and it's over, then you just kind of, you find ways of not being in that situation.
hmm. So what you're saying is absolutely. So it's up to you. What do you want to become? So so basically it's going to come down to your strength using for your benefit. So you have a very strong will, and then you can really discipline yourself if you want to, right?
Yeah, I mean that's, I'm taking a very deep dive into Tony Robbins, and everything he talks about is, it's your decisions you make. Whatever decision, like we made a decision, I made a messed up decision. I had the time wrong, but thankfully you have me on your show again. But we made a decision to be on the show today, which might impact somebody 2 years down the road.
That
So,
is true.
whatever decisions you make at this moment is what your future is going to be.
And that's true. And other important thing is that it's never too late. So a lot of people think that, okay, well, I've smoked for so many years, should I quit now or not? Well, it's never too late to turn right or turn back. And the moment you realize you're wrong, you should just turn back. That's about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I think you also have to look at, some people that started later in life.
Mm.
Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken at 66 years old. You know, Samuel L. Jackson didn't get his first major role until he was 41. So it's never too late until they put you in the ground. Then
Mm.
it's too late.
Mm. Well, that's true. And then also, so very important is whatever you're doing, and if you realize that you're smoking or doing drugs or whatever, and it's not beneficial, that, then just don't keep doing it. Just take a step and say, no, I'm going to. This is my line, and I'm not going to cross it, and just never. That's about it. So.
But I think also if a person, quits something, they need to add something to their life. It's kind of like you're replacing the addiction. You start, replacing it with something positive. For me, it's, I don't drink, I don't drug or anything, but my addiction is learning. I'm addicted to learning. I'm addicted to reading. I got 9 books going at all times. When I do my hour and a half cardio every day, I'm listening to tapes on Audible. So for me, that became my addiction, was learning and because I only got a ninth grade education. But for me, I've read over 6,000 books, and I'm just addicted to learning. So that I guess I just turned my one addiction into a positive addiction.
Mhm. Okay, well, I think that is a really great story that you can basically reinvent and fulfill that gap with something positive, so learning it. So tell me a little bit about your first book, or which one.
My first book is called A Hero's Journey from Darkness to Light. It came out because I was on a podcast, and now this whole time that I was in the military, I also worked at a GNC or a vitamin shop or the gym. So I've been in health and fitness for 33 years now, and I worked with a lot of players from NFL, Major League Baseball, WWE, World Heavyweight Boxing Champion, and so that's something that I had a passion for. And I was on a podcast, and I was talking to this gentleman, and he wanted to talk about my past, which I didn't think was a very big deal. But I wanted to talk about my future, what I was doing, and he kept going back to the past. And he said, "You know what?" And so he said, "I think you should write a book." And so I sat down with a guy named Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk,
Hmm.
uh, Gary V, um, homeboy from New Jersey, and we put a 3-year plan together, podcasting and book. So that's when I wrote the book. It's my story, but it also at the end of each chapter, it has a learning point at the end of each chapter, and then the last two chapters are what depression looks like, not what you think it looks like,
Hmm.
and then what addiction looks like and not what you think it looks like. So the last two chapters are actually a teaching book. So and the book that I put out, I don't make any money on. I make $0 on. All my money that I make off it goes to help veteran homelessness and veterans struggling with depression and PTSD. So it's not a money making thing, but it's become a rallying cry for now. I had my own mental health summit. Today I decide on April 3rd of last year, we had a free mental health summit. And I think we'll be having a couple more across the country in the coming years. So that's where it all started was, being a guest on somebody else's podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for coming to my podcast. And
No,
I
my honor. I'm grateful to be on your. I mean, you're like the man. You're like the top 60 hosts. You're like the man.
thank you, thank you. I also started with I was with active duty and doing with lot of soldiers, and that kind of motivated me to write my book about keep it simple lifestyle book. Keep it simple: diet, sleep, and exercise. And so my first few of clients, or I would say those which read the book and actually gave the feedback, were actually soldiers, and so they really liked it, so that motivated me to come more and help a lot of other folks. And like you said, I have seen, with the VA, I've served VA too many years too, and I have seen a lot of homeless, the folks there. And this is very sad, but I see that. I wish there is a way to help them. And so I do right now sleep medicine, and we help a lot of veterans get whatever we need to help them with. But I think there's a lot of things which everybody needs to help here. Especially veterans, is my heart goes out because, like I said, they really have problems. And I feel so bad. Their lungs are bad, their heart is bad, and then if they have problem with addiction and all that alcohol, then their liver and all other can suffer worse. So I wish we have a better way of handling and helping a lot of veterans. And on top of that, sad thing is that they are the sickest and they have the least money. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it, like I've had hundreds of veterans on my show. And by the way, I'm cordially inviting you to come on my show.
I will be there.
And a lot of times when a guy gets or girl gets out of the military, you lose your job, and you lose your mission and you lose your camaraderie, and you're really, after being, it's kind of like, I say the military is kind of like jail.
Mhm.
After you do 20 years in jail, you become institutionalized. You don't know how to work the system on the outside. And I think a lot of people struggle with that because, in the army, they feed you, 3 times a day, and you have a place to sleep and eat. And then when you get out, you don't really know how to survive because you've been taken care of for that 20 years or so.
And other thing which I've seen is that guys, a lot of guys and girls too, but a lot of men especially, they try to tough out and they have damage. So many times I was with them and they have served 20 years, and then we're talking about disorders, and then they say, "Oh my God, I have all of them." And I said, "But I want to tough it out because I didn't want them to know that I have these problems." Or so they don't take care of themselves, and then 20 years of damage to their body, whatever they were doing, that's very sad. Now they realize that they have to take care.
Yeah.
And
And then I think a lot of people, and I talk about this all the time, is, if you did 20 years in the military like I did, I was a tank commander. When you get out into the civilian jobs, there's not many people looking for tank commanders. So you kind of have to find somebody that is going to be able to write your resume and make your resume, like make it feasible. So when somebody's looking at it from a company, they can be like, okay, he was a tank commander, so he led the companies, he led people, he was a leader. So I think you have to have somebody out there that's going to be able to translate a resume from military career into civilian sector, or else the people that are looking at resumes are going to see a bunch of nomenclatures and they're going to just don't understand it and just push it to the side. And I think that happens a lot.
yeah, yeah, and that is true. And I think the other thing which we saw and which I'm also passionate is about transition. So you already touched on that, when they transition from that active duty or that sector to civilian world, there's a big change. And also, not to mention, there is technology, big difference between how civilian world operates, and then so they have to have those skill. I think the transition should start in last few years. So for sure they should give them enough training to be able to actually simulate in private sector. And this transition part is very important. Like you said, CV is yes, but also skills. I think a lot of skills they I see. Now the other thing is, again, I say that they could have years of damage to their skeleton and so forth. So my advice is, don't just start taking anti-inflammatory. Keep looking at, and do not, like NFL players. I give you example. I think that matches a lot. They, if they damage their knees and also their other parts, and then you don't want to be crippled after 20 years of service, then you
But,
really can't do anything.
but I also think, for me, like I said, I was in the health and fitness industry. I ran $1 million GNC, that sometimes there are some herbs out there that are work even better, some of your best inflammatory, you
That's
know, like curcumin, turmeric, for inflammation.
mm,
I think sometimes we have to start thinking outside the box instead of taking NSAIDs, or taking anti-inflammatories.
mm.
It's going to kill your liver. It's going to destroy your liver. And
Yeah,
but I think
yeah.
sometimes we need to be taught that a little bit about natural health. Certain foods cause inflammation in the body. Certain things you can take that helps with inflammation. That's why a lot of a lot of like my business partner. He's from his family's from India,
Mm.
and he always says, there's a reason why that there's not a lot of cancer in India because a lot of the curcumin, turmeric is a very high antioxidant, that cancer fighter. So you don't know what you don't know, but I think sometimes stuff like that should be talked about also instead of going the drug route. all of a sudden.
That is true. And this is important because anti-inflammatory can damage liver and kidney both, and a lot of other effects. So you're absolutely right. We should look at alternative medicine, natural products, and also very important is take care of your health. Understand that that you have to have your healthy lifestyle throughout, not when you retire, not when you are, you try to maintain throughout. And I think this is very important, and I think we'll talk more. And thank you for coming to our show, and it's been pleasure. So tell me any final message you have for my audience.
Well, guys, wherever you're watching from, I just want to remind you that the three most important words in the English language are today, I decide. You decide whether you want to live a healthy life. You decide if you want to die early. And it's all the decisions you make today will impact your life next year, 5 years, 10 years. So just if you want to change, just make that decision to get help and to reach out for help today. Don't wait because there is no tomorrow. Like in America, we just found out that one of the biggest comedians, Bob Saget, passed away at
Mm.
65, and he did a show on Saturday, and he had plans for Monday. So guys, make a decision to change, and you can make that decision right now, and it's free. All you have to do is make that decision.
That is true, so true. And thank you for coming, and it's been pleasure knowing you and also learning from your story and how successful you can have. So it's very important people realize that there's a life which everybody deserve and can have, but you have to work for it. You have to decide, like you said, and then pursue your decision and dreams. And so don't give up. So take care. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys.